938 Live. This is Talkback.
So we're all on Facebook and Twitter, but what are we doing there? Do we even know what we're doing there? You were talking earlier about how so many people become emotionally charged online and they feel like they can be, because there's no one watching them, lose their minds.
So they think.
But of course, once you post whatever it is you're posting online, people can watch you lose your mind.
Of course.
A nurse who allegedly, and at this point I should stress allegedly, made disparaging comments about Singaporeans on his Facebook page, has now been put on administrative duties by his employer. The police, meanwhile, are investigating his claims that his account was hacked, hence those remarks. However, this incident has again brought the issue of social media literacy into the spotlight. His employer, Tan Tock Seng Hospital, has said that as a public healthcare institution, it expects its staff to be respectful and professional. In the past, several people have lost their jobs after their offensive comments on social media were discovered, and after those comments especially went viral. Last year, Wealth Manager Anton Casey was fired after he made insensitive comments about public transport commuters in Singapore. In 2012, an individual named Amy Cheong lost her job at NTUC. She had made disparaging remarks about the Malay community in Singapore. Now, there have been many cases around the world as well in which employees' use of Facebook has resulted in them losing their jobs.
Now, for instance, a waitress in the US blasted 2 customers over Facebook for tipping her badly and keeping her late. Now, she also mentioned her workplace by name.
Big mistake.
Big mistake. So she was fired for breaking a rule about disparaging customers. Now, if you had that sort of person working for you, what would you do? So ask
even if she hadn't mentioned her workplace by name, it would have been implied, because her friends would have known where she works, so on and so forth. And you can't do this, really, is how I feel about it.
Now, in another case, a woman who worked at a National Suisse in Switzerland called in sick, complaining of migraines and saying that, she needed to work in a darkened room at home. So she stayed home, and when her Facebook activity started showing up, she was promptly fired.
So the whole fake MC, I need to work from home thing can't work either.
Yes.
Well, some might say it's common sense. You should know how to conduct yourself online, especially in such cases. If you've told your employer, I've got a migraine, I'm in a darkened room at home working, you shouldn't be posting pictures of yourself having lunch with your friends, right? It's common sense. More recently, you would think, not so common after all. More recently, though, just this week in Britain, a stockbroker was fired, and he was forced to make an apology after he tweeted this. Okay, I'm quoting him. "Think I just hit a cyclist, but I'm late for work, so I had to drive off." And he capped it off with an LOL.
Oh dear.
Now, he later said the incident never occurred. He was just joking. In such cases, though, should the employee be forgiven? But the employer says that he failed to conduct himself to the standards that the employer expects of its staff. So are jokes a no-no as well? Perhaps just jokes in poor taste. I personally would classify that as a joke in poor taste. But if that is subjective, how is one really to know that they have crossed the line? Some argue that remarks made on an individual's personal Facebook page should not affect their professional lives. But question is, can the two really be separated? Also, isn't it common sense that how you project yourself on social media will have an impact on how your employer or your clients see you? And if what you express is socially unacceptable, surely you should expect repercussions. Perhaps companies need to have a clearer social media policy. What should such a policy look like? And how can it also allow individuals to be themselves while not affecting their careers? Call us on 669-11938. Talk to us also on Facebook, official 938 Live. Joining us today over the phone is media researcher Dr. Michael Nedsley. He's from the Singapore Management University. Now, Michael, first of all, some argue that remarks made on your personal Facebook page really should not affect your professional life. But can the two really be separated, you think?
Well, good morning, and I don't think that they can be separated. I am old enough to remember an age when what I did at work happened at work, and what I would do in the evening was a separate life or realm. But today, social media has blended those two together, and whether we like it or not, they are inseparable.
To what extent do you think people understand this, though, based on what we have been seeing lately?
Well, there's the heart of the matter. What's happened here is that the technology has advanced more rapidly than society. So we have the capability of doing things with the smartphone that's in our hand and with us for 24 hours a day without fully understanding the broader consequences. And it's going to take some time for society to learn and catch up with the technology.
Of course, some people seem to have learned and caught up with it. Paul Anthony Fernandez, for instance, has written this on our Facebook page. He says it all boils down to self-discipline. And if you still want to post such comments on your Facebook wall, then please customize your privacy settings to stay clear from public outbursts. Give us a call, 669-11938. We want to hear what you think as well. Mr. Cheong joins us now. Hi, Mr. Cheong.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Cheong. What do you think?
No, the point is that the guy is working in hospital, what we call passing a bad comments about Singapore and Singaporeans. You know, I don't blame him. You know, I'm 67 years old. I've been in and out of hospital. I see all the staff, perhaps it's about 60% are all foreigners, man. What you expect? They bring the culture from the country to our country, man.
Well, let's bear in mind, though, it hasn't been proven without a doubt that this person really said all of those things himself. The nurse claims that his account was hacked into. But aside from your true sentiments, you know, beyond that, should you be expressing those true sentiments if they are deemed socially unacceptable on your Facebook page? So I think by talking about how these people really feel or what their behavior really is, we're missing the point.
Correct.
The point really is whether or not we should be expressing such things openly, offending people openly, and then becoming known as an offensive person, losing your job in the process, maybe even reducing the chances of your getting a new job in the future. Call us on 669-11938. Michael, what do you think of the state of affairs? Do you think it's fair for employers to based on what's been said online by a particular person, to actually fire them?
That is a remarkably difficult question. In general, I would have to say yes, it is okay to fire somebody because the reality is these technologies have blurred that line between private and professional life. The more important question, I think, is how do we do our due diligence when we are preparing to fire somebody? And that's where I think companies are possibly overreacting and responding too quickly, perhaps out of fear that they too might get drawn into the controversy.
So due diligence, and that of course would require investigation, more deeper investigation, right?
Or even just simple act of patience. Let's take the example from the UK. Is this just the joke of a young, testosterone-filled man with a lack of common sense at that moment? Or did he actually hit a cyclist?
Right.
And patience would be required to find that out.
Well, the fact is, people might just say that, okay, even if he had really been joking, it was in poor taste.
Yeah.
And that's reflective of the person's character too, and we don't want that type of person associated with our brand.
I agree with that it's in remarkably poor taste, but at the same time, I would ask us, do we want to live in a society where you are not able to make any mistakes at all without consequences of losing your public reputation, damaging personal relationships, or losing your job? Are we responding too quickly and creating a society that none of us in the end really would enjoy living in?
Well, where exactly do we draw the line? So the big question is, how can social media policy allow people to be themselves while not immediately affecting their careers? Michael, in what types of cases would you say it would be pretty black and white? That there may not be a need for patience or due diligence?
I think when we look at the cases that, if my memory serves, one involved NTUC last year, the other one recently was Tan Tock Seng Hospital. These involve statements of opinion. And if you are a public body providing service to the public and you're saying, I hate part of my public, my sense is that you probably have less patience required. Whereas the case with the cyclist was a question of fact. Did he or did he not hit another cyclist? And there you're probably going to have more patience. But at the end of the day, I think that company directors and executives would be remiss if they were not looking to protect the reputation of their company. And you have to go down this path, but in a way that is reasonable and exercises due diligence.
Okay. Earlier you did mention that the technology seems to have moved faster than society has. So we'll be discussing that in just a moment. But let's see who's joining us now on the phone.
Okay, we got Mr. Tan. Hi, Mr. Tan.
Yeah, good morning. First of all, I'm a Singaporean. Okay, now, all this did not happen, quite some time back. I'm born here. Now, all this happens because the policies has caused unhappiness both sides. First, the Singaporeans, and then now because the foreigners get hurt because of certain policy, this thing, right? And now what's happening is a retaliation upon retaliation. But if you think that you should sack Roy Ng because of what he said, then why don't you sack this guy? In other words, what you're saying is there's never an end to it. And the Prime Minister started it all.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Tan. If you're talking about this guy, as in the nurse that's embroiled in the current situation, that case is still being investigated because he claims that the account was hacked.
Yes.
But a lot of people feel that, yes, there is a reason to be upset, which is why I should go online and express my anger, because Mr. Tan alluded to policy, so on and so forth, that have fueled some frustrations within society. But ultimately, if the repercussion of your expressing your anger openly in an uncontrolled manner, your biases, your prejudices openly in an uncontrolled manner, if the repercussion of that is that you lose your job and your public reputation, do you have anyone to blame?
Look, I think not everybody is going to be in agreement with everything.
Yes. So, I mean, a lot of us are unhappy about a lot of things.
Correct.
It's a matter of how you deal with it.
And how you express it.
Yeah, and unleashing your anger online may not be the right way of doing it. Perhaps we need better coping mechanisms. Call us on 669-11938. We'll continue speaking with you and our expert as well, Dr. Michael Nedsley. He's a media researcher from the Singapore Management University. I'm going to be talking more about social media conduct policy within companies, as well as education, as technology might have moved faster than society has. Stay with us on 938 Live. Now, a nurse who allegedly made disparaging comments about Singaporeans on his Facebook page has now been put on admin duties by his employer. Meanwhile, the police are investigating his claims that his account was hacked. Hence those remarks. So he was not responsible for it, is what he's saying. The incident has again brought the issue of social media literacy and usage into the spotlight. His employer, Tan Tock Seng Hospital, has said that as a public healthcare institution, it expects its staff to be respectful and professional. So even though you might be making these comments on your personal Facebook pages, it doesn't really matter. Can the two be separated? Your professional life and what you say in a personal capacity online? Last year, wealth manager Anton Casey was also fired after he made insensitive comments about public transport commuters here. In 2012, Amy Cheong lost her job at NTUC. She had made disparaging remarks about the Malay community. There are many other examples around the world as well. The question is, though, however you feel about, say, government policy or about another person or about another community, do you have the right to express your frustrations openly online? We're talking today with Dr. Michael Nedsley. He's a media researcher from the Singapore Management University. Now, Michael, some of our callers earlier said that there are good reasons for some of the frustrations that some of us feel. Hence, expressing those frustrations online is justified. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I think I can completely understand that. It's no different than, say, going to the hawker or going to a pub with a colleague and expressing your frustrations. But what we have to learn is that these technologies take what would have, in a few years previous, been a private comment amongst friends, put it into a context where it spreads easily, And whether we like it or not, there are far too many people willing to immediately do a screen capture of anything provocative. And if it turns out to be news, they're immediately going to spread it even further outside your network. So the context has changed. And while we may miss the old days, they are gone.
So perhaps more education on that front. Do we really need so many reminders? Shouldn't we know this already? Give us a call, 669-11938. Mr. Tam joins us now. Hi, Mr. Tam.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I guess this issue of this internet communication having so many miscommunication, so to speak, is not entirely new. So the hacking issue aside, I think there are two main points I wish to make. The first thing is we should all be very mindful about communicating online, because whatever that is posted online is going to leave a permanent digital footprint. And for many, many years later, you'll be surprised that messages that you posted previously can still surface.
Why do you think people don't understand this? Some people, anyway, don't seem to get this.
I guess because of the proliferation of social media as a social communication platform, people tend to use such platforms to communicate very casually, just like when you're talking face-to-face with friends. But they are not, they miss one point, which is the absence of a context. Because when you're communicating face-to-face, the context will provide additional meaning to the words that are being said.
Exactly. So, and if you still wish to express your frustrations, go out with a friend and do it, maybe at a private table somewhere in a restaurant or something, right? Mr. Tam, you've got another point to make. You said there were 2 points you wanted to make.
Yes, actually, what I'm trying actually is an elaboration of this point on context, which is very important. So, for example, if I'm together with a friend and my friend is angry with me for being late, and he calls me names, and I understood entirely where it's coming from, because he's angry with me for being late and he calls me names. That can be forgiven. But if that message is posted online and some other audience which reads the message can take the message out of context, and the whole misunderstanding can occur.
Mr. Tam, very good points you've made, very valid indeed. To what extent do you think companies should have the right to fire their employees if those employees make comments on their personal pages in a way that is not in line with the company's principles or the company's image?
I guess the education process must take place on both sides. For the employee, I think they have to be mindful about communicating casually online, especially if they are holding positions that has constant contact with the public at large. I think they have to be mindful of that. I think for the employer, equally important, I think they have to look at what is being posted online and whether that has a direct bearing on the professional work that is done by the employee.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Tam. Really appreciate it. Let's see what Ian has to say now. Ian joins us on 669-11938. Hi, Ian.
Hi, good morning to everyone. I totally agree with Dr. Medley about that society hasn't evolved, hasn't managed to catch up with the technological evolution. And I think there's been two simple groups of the society can be broken up into two simple groups, and that's one that has embraced the social media, and the other group being those that have not realized the power of social media and its implications. And I think that basically these two groups, there are people who genuinely do not know. Have not realized the power of social media, and those people are the ones that tend to fall prey to these misfortunes of misconduct, so to speak. Yeah.
How do you think education can be put forth in a more effective manner?
I think social media in itself is real-time and real-life education. The mistakes that you make via your post serve as reminder that you're in the public eye and all the time, and as long as you take part in social media, that's all.
Right. So you think a person has to make a mistake and get in trouble with serious repercussions before they'll actually learn?
Yes, that's right. And in that
Okay.
department, I think as far as employees go, it's really subjective to the degree of the severity of their post.
Ian, do you have, is your company also in the mix when it comes to social media conduct policy?
Actually, we have no hard and fast rules as far as social media is concerned. However, definitely there is an unspoken rule, that you don't cross this line as far as work and play goes.
I understand about unspoken rules, and a lot of companies have said that, it's a tacit understanding, people should know it. However, do you think companies should have clearer social media conduct policies for their employees so that there are no grey areas?
I think it couldn't hurt. I think if a company is willing to sit down and really pen out these rules, that would be very, very helpful to any employee.
Thank you very much, Ian, for calling in this morning. So, Michael Netzley is a media researcher from the Singapore Management University. He joins us on the phone today as well. Michael, what should social media conduct policy look like in the corporate setting? Is that something you would even advocate for every single firm?
I absolutely advocate it, and I would say that simply having a social media policy is an important first step, but an inadequate step. Having a policy without actually actively training people on it so that they can understand this major societal shift that's happening because of the technology, without that training, it's inadequate.
And what would that training constitute, really? I mean, give us an idea of how you envisage it would be effective.
I think that it could actually take multiple forms. I would probably integrate it into new employee orientations. Would probably integrate this into the internal corporate communication policy so that it is repeatedly shared with employees. And I would actually have some member of the company go from business unit to business unit, spend 45 minutes with them, and walk them through specific examples of this is okay, this is questionable, this gets you fired.
But you don't want it to be too stifling either. I mean, people have recommended that even in school, social media literacy become a part of the curriculum, and I believe that many schools already have such programs. But ultimately, you also want the individual to be able to express their individuality, right, online?
Absolutely, and that's why the one thing I hadn't gotten to was that I think these need to be as simple as possible. You don't want a two-page social media policy. Keep it simple and clear and give people some room, as Ian suggested, to figure this out for themselves.
Thank you very much for that, Michael. Michael Netzley is a media researcher from the Singapore Management University. Now, we've seen many cases over the years, people posting videos of alleged crimes, online vigilanteism, then these offensive comments that have gotten people fired. So tell us what you think needs to be done in order to increase social media literacy in Singapore. Do people realize they are also ambassadors of their companies, or in the case of students, of their school when communicating on their social media pages? Talk to us on Official 938 Live. Thanks for your phone calls today.